against each other. So now that tribalism, which was used to happen like 20 years or 10 years back, where the national level tribalism, like, oh, this is my team, this is my country's player playing and I'm going to support him. It is almost, you go into an IPL match and you're seeing that 10 players from 10 different countries playing in together. For you, it has just become a sense of emotion. Oh, you're going to cherish it. That's it. It is also, referring back to the Ian's point that any particular player you are like loving much, that used to happen before. But now, I don't think a lot of people would be looking at a player because it belongs to a country or my country. It is more about he's playing good, no matter he's Virat Kohli or he's, Adam Gilchrist or like anybody. You look into the class, you look at the quality of the play, and then you cherish it. This is what I see it, Ian.
Oh, this is actually a really interesting point, and it's definitely something that, because I follow English Premier League soccer, and something that is very, very prevalent over there is what you guys are talking about, local teams who have a rational hatred for each other simply either by geographical locations or perhaps one point in history they had a strong rivalry, which is great in one sense because it increases the excitement of the game. But then on the other side of things, if you met someone and you happen to be a Manchester United fan, as an example, and then you found out that they're a Manchester City fan, you could have the best friendship in the world, but for some reason it just gets blocked and blighted by the idea that, oh, you're a City fan, I can't be friends with you, or I have to hate you irrationally for some reason. And I'm not quite sure where that comes from. Spre, do you have any thoughts on this?
Deep down inside, humans have the urge to connect with each other, but also in saying that we also like having an opposition, an enemy, because it reinforces our bonds with the people that we want to join with. To have a common enemy, it means you can focus your hatred, your anger, your attention on they're the bad guy, that's the bad team, that's the opposing team. And therefore anyone on my side, anyone in my family, anyone in my tribe, anyone in my clan, where we can bond together, we can come together and be a strength, be stronger together. That's almost a biological aspect. Your tribe is there to defend you and represent you, and you are a part of you are a small cog and a small piece of the bigger mechanism. So I think it comes from that sort of evolutionary biological aspect. In itself, there's no real reason why it should happen. There's no logical reason. It's the soccer team, And Tish is right. You have players from various countries now being hired and playing in different teams and no longer represent their actual ethnicity. So we are looking for heroes and we are looking for places to belong. So therefore we need to have that tribe mentality just to feel connected in our weirdly connected yet disconnected modern world.
Don't blame me on this thing if I'm getting window to talk about the underlying mechanics and the abstraction playing in and the biological reasons. It's not my fault. It's Spiro, right?
You steered in the right direction, Spiro. Let's continue.
The athleticism of sport is now no longer important because now it's the celebrity status of the player. I mean, you go back to your Maradonas and your Pelés and your older players from a few decades ago, and they are idolized as gods, but they're just people that kick a round ball. Like, let's be honest, they just kick a piece of leather around a field for 2 hours or so. Like, it's whoopee-doo. Like, in itself, it's a pretty trivial thing, but people identify them and they feel a sense of pride when they win. So we're desperate to attach more to these people via proxy, feel something as well.
Another way, it is like it's not different to a nationalism campaign or a political election campaign, right?
Yeah.
Correct, right? Yeah.
It's very true. And I think actually a really good example of that is Usain Bolt, because he's the world's fastest man and he's hailed for that athletic ability. But no one really thinks, oh, wow, this is an amazing feat. He runs 100 meters in 9 point whatever seconds. Everyone just wants to copy his celebration. And it's his personality that's actually the real, driver of why people maybe admire him more than his actual athletic prowess.
Beckham was very similar. He was a good footballer. You can't say David Beckham wasn't really good at what he does. However, his celebrity status comes from his appearance, his marriage to a Spice Girl, all that collective sort of marketing around him, not necessarily the actual kicking of the football. It's the same thing.
And I think this actually is a good segue into what Saranga was talking about earlier about how money comes in and corrupts sport in a way, because it's exactly like you said, David Beckham was marketed as this amazing footballer. And in the same way, the tribalism is fueled by marketing, where the advertisements say you go for X team, so therefore you hate Y team, and you're going to go to this match and hate each other, and we're going to take your money, and you're going to buy merchandise and all those kind of things. So it's another aspect, we talked about how nationalism plays a big role in identifying our relationship to sports, family, our childhood memories, even culture. But how big is the marketing part? What do you guys think?
Well, allow me to speak first. Well, see, the idea of marketing and the idea of making money, the human mind and human ego, it's like you can piggyback anything. It's a constant flowing, impulsive mechanics. It's like an engine which is in constant flow. You want to utilize it because he's your consumer for your marketing perspectives. You are going to do something. Somehow you can piggyback on this constant impulsive flow of the human mind, where it wants something to relate all the time. My family, my team, my country, my company, my profile, my team in my workplace. So it's kind of everywhere we go, most of us, we want comfort. And how do we build this comfort? We develop a team of people. We develop a sense of relationship, identification to make ourselves comfortable. And marketing is just an idea to leverage upon this particular human instinctual behavior. That's it. So we talk about the cricket in India. Most of the biggest rich sponsors, they are all banking upon the cricketers in India. Now you have got IPL, so you have got regional teams, and they are all being sponsored. And the TV, only you see the ads, it's just flood of marketing of these sponsors on the face of these cricketers. So I said the marketing is more about leveraging upon the human chronic dysfunction. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll have to put a bit of a positive spin on marketing here because because I know I think everyone knows the negative drawbacks of marketing here. But let's take broadcasting rights, for example, and cricket in particular. So now Cricket Australia got a good deal out of this one with the Channel 7 and Foxtel. The way I see marketing, it's a driver for sports to be presented to the wider audience, the larger audience of community. Otherwise, if you don't have that marketing behind that, you won't get that exposure to the community. And that's where it plays a huge role. Like Katish says, there is always going to be that pull from marketing where they want to promote their brand and do what they want to do with their identity and that side. If you think of it in the larger context of sports growing in the community, because if you think about sports in general, it is a good outlet for kids to grow when they grow, to have led their energy disciplined into a sort of a sports arena rather than going into other sorts of violence. You're always going to get in that aspects of those things. But if you come from and start from the basis that sports is good for the community, then the second step is marketing. That's where marketing has to be there. But one has to monitor marketing each time because marketing is always going to exploit the situation.
The grassroots sport is a huge aspect of this whole thing, right? So there's this, I guess I would say that for a lot of sports, particularly national bodies, they do feel a social responsibility in the sense that they do provide funding to grassroots football or grassroots sports for young children so that they don't sit behind a couch and watch TV and play video games all day, which hopefully is a good thing. Yeah, but at the same time, it is actually a marketing ploy to lure a kid into that particular sport at exactly the same moment, and where they'll hopefully grow up to be adults who then spend their dollars on watching matches and sponsorship, buying Nike shoes or whatever the particular sponsorship is. So it's almost like that old hook them when they're young kind of mentality.
Because it's a comparison you want to see. If you want to see the kid go up and be a sports star, or you want the kid to grow up and go to jail or commit some sort of violence and go in that side of things, where you're giving them an outlet, and however that outlet might be is not relevant to the sport itself. It is an outlet for the kid to grow up, and that's something we need to have in society in general.
Okay, awesome. But I mean, obviously, it's not always just a positive thing as well. So definitely in Australian culture, we do have a bit of a bad boy sporting history. Most recently, probably Bernard Tomic, I think, is a good example, and how he's gone from the pin-up to being this bad influence. And does it worry you guys that someone like him, probably even, another good example is Lance Armstrong, who is this major hero. He won 7 Tour de France's and came back from cancer and won Tour de France's. And then suddenly he's now obviously a drug cheat. And so, does that invalidate his achievements? Or at the same time, is it a good thing for kids to go, oh, Lance Armstrong won seven Tour de France's in the adversity that he faced?
This is the fallback of looking up at a role model in life. It could be superhero, it could be a movie, it could be a sports star. I think as a kid grow up, this you find out that the ideal image of that ideal person is not available, and it's something that is there only to encourage you. But it is constantly happening in every sport you can think of. There's a corruption part, there's the gambling, and there's in that lens where you can see role models just their lives just going haywire.
I think it's the responsibility of the parent as well to be clear with your child when they have those role models. So, if Louis Armstrong does something wrong, you're just saying, hey, don't do that to your kids.
Blasphemy, Brad. Blasphemy. You're trying to say a parent has a responsibility to teach their children?
Look at NRL. You've got people doing, every week they seem to be in the media, but let's go back a bit to Todd Carney urinating into his own mouth. Surely, if that was your role model of your child, image. I know, right? He was taken out of NRL because of it, and surely you would say to your child, "Hey, don't do that." It doesn't discredit any of his sporting history. You don't say, "Oh, he's a horrible football player now," but you would say he's probably a horrible person, so don't do what he does outside of the sport.
I'm not sure it's always going to be that obvious, though. I think that obviously when a sports person does something criminal or does something that level of stupid, it's a pretty obvious one. Don't pee in your own mouth. But if it's something far less dangerous, I guess, I'm trying to think of a good example, like maybe potentially the way that sports stars spend money, or that they drive fast cars and they drive them recklessly, and in comparison, a speeding ticket is nothing like beating your partner or a serious crime. But those are still the things that influence kids, so how would you say that a parent could protect their kids from something like that?
I think it's circumstantial. It depends on what it is.
I think also we in the Western world are relying on too few avenues for mentorship and for role models. Basically, all we have left now are movie stars and sportsmen or sports people. That's it. That's a horrible choice. You either be a Kardashian or some jacked up movie star who's perverted in some way, or some equally perverted or jacked up sports person. That's it. That's all we've got in our Western world. The challenge for parents, for everyone, is to look beyond the bounds of what is right there on the surface. There are more people that are inspiration, more people that could be really good role models and actually you can learn from. Potentially not a superstar in a field who may get some national award, but they're not going to be publicized because they didn't score the winning goal or something. But they're actually just as important in a different field. We tend to ignore them because they don't make great headlines.
So I'd like to switch tacks just slightly, because it's not just the idea of nationalism as a sport that I think infects people's minds in some ways, but also the sport itself. A really good example is what's happening with this current World Cup. The World Cup is in Russia. And for 4 weeks of this year, everyone's going to love Russia, and it's going to be this great advertisement, and then it's going to boost the Russian economy, which is fine, but it's going to misrepresent what Russia is. And sorry to any KGB agents listening in, but Russia has had some severe humanitarian problems. The way that they treat people that aren't heterosexual, they're horrible, horrible things that happen in Russia. And in the same way with Qatar, we hear stories of them preparing for their World Cup in 2022, where people are literally dying. They're being treated like slaves to build these stadiums, and who knows how many people will have died or suffered or been driven to poverty because of this tournament. But for that 4 weeks in 2022, they're going to be idolized. So I'd like to hear people's thoughts on the way that sport misrepresents and maybe even is a major marketing play from a country level to convince people, hey, maybe we're not as bad as you think because, hey, we held a World Cup here.
It's called propaganda. We all do it. Every country has done it. Australia did it for our Olympics. We pretty much shipped out all the homeless people out of Sydney for the 2 weeks that the Olympics were here. They vanished off the streets, but we have no homeless problem. No tourist can see them. No dignitary can see them. No sports person from another country can see them. They're all gone. Yeah, great. Australia's brilliant. It's propaganda.
Natisha, this seems like a topic you'd have